Welcome back, brothers and sisters. I am Braden. This is Langley Outdoors Academy, and thank you for stopping by. All right, guys, what we're going to talk about tonight is a win in the short term for the New York Attorney General Letitia James. This is all around the concealed carry law that was basically put under injunction by Judge Suddaby last week. Well, Letitia James, we did a video on this, put forward a motion and said, hey, can we maybe keep the law in place? Sure, it's unconstitutional. Sure, it's egregious to the rights of the New Yorkers and the Second Amendment rights everywhere, but it would cause such chaos. They've been granted that temporary stay on the existing injunction. This is incredibly important because as the ball of freedom goes back and forth on this ping pong table of our 2A rights, we are going to be covering it every single day. There's a link in the description box below. I cannot wait to hear what you guys think while I walk you through this, because this is something that we really need to know as we are on offense in the state of New York. I'm going to say a quick word from our sponsor, Established Titles, and then we're going to dive right into it, and I cannot wait to hear what you guys think in the comments field below. You guys heard of the castle doctrine? Well, with this sponsor, we're going to take it to the next level. And if you are defending your castle with something more traditional that looks like this, or maybe something a little more modern that looks like this, Established Titles gives you the ability to call yourself Lord or Lady while defending your castle. Now, the title packs give you 1 square foot of established land on a private estate in Edelston, Scotland, and an official certificate with a crest, like you see right here. You may all refer to me now as Lord Braden. Thank you in advance. Your certificate features a unique plot number with which you can see the exact location of your land. And if you're one of the first 200 to use the link in the description box below, we can create our own little LOA kingdom near my personal plot. It makes a great last minute gift. They even have couple packs that come with adjoining plots of land in said fiefdom. They plant a tree with every order and work with global charities, 1 tree planted and trees to the future to support global reforestation efforts. My personal favorite reason to do this? You could officially change your name to Lord or Lady, so anything woke will have to address you by your proper title, which will send them into the next dimension, which might be worth it by itself. And you can get on that credit card and you can even put it on your dating profiles. It makes an amazing last-minute gift. Establishment Titles is actually running a massive sale right now. Plus, if you use the code Langley, you get an additional 10% off. So go to establishedtitles.com/Langley to get your gifts now and help support the channel. And thank you so much in advance for checking it out. All right, my brothers and sisters, we have got some stuff to dive into. This is breaking as of around 2 to 3 hours before the filming of this video. So this is hot off the presses. And if you are new, we would love for you to consider subscribing and joining the fold. We need as many people as we can to get this information out quickly and spread it like wildfire. And thank you so much in advance for your consideration of that subscription. But let's get to it. I've got to walk you through a few things. But before we get into the actual news of what happened, here's the table that I'm going to set for you of what Letitia James requested a couple days ago of the Second Circuit Appellate Court. Here we go. The serious risk of irreparable harm to public safety and the possibility of regulatory chaos necessitates an immediate appeal. As the data confirm, more guns carried in more places by more people result in more crime, violence, and homicide. In addition, state and local officials have spent significant resources implementing the CCIA and informing New Yorkers about the new law, only to have the order sow confusion among the public, licensing officials, and law enforcement. The purpose of interim relief is to preserve the status quo, not to create turmoil during the pendency of litigation. Translation. Sure, we're in court. Sure, we got an injunction against us. Sure, it's unconstitutional, but we already spent all this money shouting it from the rooftops that we won and we're infringing. We can't just go back and have nothing in place and let constitutional rights take hold. We can't have that. Well, the appellate court decided that that was a good argument. Let's dive into this because, like I said, I've got 2 sources. Everything is linked. We got some stuff to discuss. New York's gun law remains in effect as court gives more time for arguments. This is from the Reuters. The next one's from the New York Times. New York, October 12. New York's new gun law will remain in effect for now as a federal appeals court on Wednesday agreed to temporarily reverse a lower court's order blocking the law's central provisions while a legal challenge by a gun owners' right group proceeds. Translation. It's going to stay in place while the litigation continues, which is ironic because now New York State has Times Square, which is now a double sensitive place. Anyway, the Second U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals in New York City reversed the temporary restraining order issued last week by U.S. District Judge Judge Suddaby, while an appeal filed by New York's government was heard by a 3-judge motions panel. So in summation, a stay has been put on the injunction while it can go further in front of a 3-judge panel to argue the validity of the injunction or not while the litigation continues. This system is complex. Let's put it that way. Last week's order had marked one of the most prominent victories by gun owners' rights groups in challenging gun restrictions around the United States since June's landmark decision, the Bruen decision, that said for the first time the Americans have a constitutional right to carry weapons in public. Of course we do. It's a no-brainer, but we got to have court decisions because they're constantly trying to infringe and push that envelope even further. In this situation, it's just delaying the inevitable. This is not a loss for GOA. This is not a win for New York. This is literally the gun law stays in place, the concealed carry law stays in place until a 3-judge panel decides if the injunction goes further. That's what this is. This is basically an emergency stay on the injunction that was put. Suddaby gave 3 days for them to appeal. This is what happened. All right, let's keep going. The state's overhauled gun law took effect on September 1 and is being closely watched by other states around the country in which gun violence has become recurrent. It establishes new requirements for obtaining a license, including submitting social media accounts for review, and creates a long list of public and private places where having a gun become a felony crime even for license holders. And that's the real unspoken thing here. If this works in New York, you're going to see it in every other gun control state. If it doesn't, you're not going to see it in every gun control state. It is a bellwether. That's the entire point of this legislation. California is waiting to see what happens in the New York case so they don't waste time and they get the infringement that they want without being tied up in court litigation. Let's keep going. Then we're going to get the New York Times article, which kind of shows next steps. The appeals court 3-judge panel will later rule on whether to restore Suddaby's temporary restraining order. Suddaby, meanwhile, will hear arguments later this month on whether to grant a preliminary injunction that will again block central provisions of the new law while the litigation proceeds. It's almost like this is dramatically unconstitutional, because it is. This is kicking the can further down the road. This is not a win for Letitia James in the New York AG's office. But now, let's jump over to the New York Times article because I'll show you this because it puts a very good encapsulation on what's happening in next steps. Court gives New York State more time to argue for its gun law. Attorney General Letitia James had asked the measure remain in place while she appeals a judge's order striking down many of its provisions, and I read that to you to open this video. The decision from the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit allows the state more time to enforce a measure intended to limit the carrying of guns in public places, as a 3-judge panel weighs a request to keep the law in place for a longer time. So essentially, you're looking at more decisions on if it's going to be under injunction for longer or not as the litigation continues. It's very important to understand what they're doing. They're kicking the can down the road, and they want their cake and they want to eat it too. The judge had granted New York 3 business days before his order would have gone into effect, and on Monday, Attorney General Letitia James appealed to the Second Circuit Court. We covered that on this channel. She argued that the court's ruling had been improper and asked that his order be stayed as the case continues, which is what we've been kind of hitting on this whole video. This part right here is a really good summation, and then we're going to send you on your Wednesday night. The appeals court granted the lesser of Ms. James' request for a temporary administrative stay and referred her other requests. The Judge Suddaby's order be stayed until her office could appeal it at length, so it's stayed until it can be appealed at length in front of those 3 judges, to a 3-judge panel that decides motions. The full gun law will remain in effect at least until that panel decides on the merits of Ms. James' motion. So it's given more time to the exact same motion that I opened this video with. This is not over. This is not done. This is just the beginning. And as I mentioned in the intro, the ping pong ball of freedom that's set on our 2A rights is in full motion. And I cannot wait to hear what you guys think in the comments field below. I'm Braden. See you later.